Well, I am so excited. My name is Ashley Lindsey, and I am here with the artistic director and creator of DDL Dance Device Labs, Mr. Brandon Cournay. How are you?
I'm well. I am well. How are you?
I'm great. So a couple weeks ago, I got to do an interview with Brandon, and now we get to flip the tables a little bit. And
Roles reversed.
I love it. We get to hear about Brandon's dance background, how DDL became to be DDL, and lots of other great things. How about we just jump right in? How did your journey in all this begin in dance?
In
So,
dance. Yeah. So I grew up in Walled Lake, Michigan, which is a very small town about right here on the Michigan map, about just outside of Detroit. And I grew up at a studio that was, I wouldn't call us a huge competition studio, but we did a lot of competitions. I definitely grew up doing a lot of conventions. I started by taking one jazz class a week and a boys class, and it sort of snowballed from there to two classes to tap. So you're on the team, you're in the company, and then you're in college. And it was like, whoa, what happened? I like cried my way through T-ball. I didn't like anything except for dance, and I had parents who were supportive and allowed me to continue doing that. And then I went to Juilliard. Which is where I met you in the city. And that was sort of my first introduction to modern dance and concert dance. And, I grew up I would say our studio was very musical theater and commercial driven. We had a lot of dancers that worked at Disney. They did a lot of cruise ships. The Radio City Christmas show we had a lot of kids dancing there. So I would say our focus was primarily more commercial dance and very performance driven. And when I went to Juilliard, that really opened my eye up to contemporary dance and modern dance and just like simply like what is a dance company. We didn't have that in Michigan. No, a couple of companies came to the Power Center through U of M, but that was just never on our radar. That just like wasn't what we did. So that was a huge fork in the road for me. And
what about that versatile training were you able to carry over into your time at Juilliard?
That's a great question. I think I went there never having had a modern dance class in my life. So I think being a versatile dancer as a younger dancer, when I got there, it allowed me to not judge anything when I did go there. It's like, even though I didn't have modern, even though I hadn't done a dance that was longer than 3 minutes in my entire life, I was able to transpose those ideas and just put them in a different form. Like my body was used to being uncomfortable and taking some time to let it acclimate and get used to a physical form. So it wasn't like I was like only doing ballet and then I was like asked to do this like contemporary work with the new choreographer. I liked figuring it out. And also, when you're a studio kid, you are really fast.
It's almost like as competition kids, the information's in our bodies. It's just when we start to do new work, it's informed and accessed in a very different way, but it's there. Those are some of my favorites, is to see that transition from those like spitfire competitive dancers into that concert and even the ballet world.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, you did Juilliard, and then where did we go after Juilliard?
Yeah, well, kind of interestingly enough, I went back to my sort of studio commercial roots. I missed it. I had a great time at Juilliard. It was a big fork in my road, but I wanted to like put my jazz shoes back on, and I wanted to do something a little more high energy. So I actually, and to be perfectly honest, I graduated in 2009, which was in the depths of the recession. So there actually weren't any dance jobs to be had. And I was actually asked we were also not only New York City Dance Lines, but we did West Coast Dance Explosion a lot. So, and I just growing up, John and Alan's from Michigan, so I've known them a really long time, and they asked me if I wanted to come out and assist them at a convention, which at the time was like really unconventional for me to be doing and like the path that I was on. But to be honest, like it was really good money. I got to like learn how to be back in that world. They were incredible mentors for me, and I didn't have to do things I didn't want to. I was able to go on the weekends, and then I could come back in during the week and continue training. And it was sort of like a weird trajectory that I didn't know. I didn't think I wanted to do it, but in hindsight, it was completely wonderful as a way to have some financial security and keep dance in my life when I probably would not have ever been able to do that in 2009 living in New York. So then after that tour was over, I went back. I still stuck with that route. I did the Radio City Christmas show. And around that time, after doing hundreds of Radio City shows in your bear costume, I was like, okay, now I need to go back to like modern. I was like, check, did it totally, like convention world, Christmas show, my teeth, my cheeks hurt from smiling. I want to like project. So around that time, a choreographer that I worked with in college named Larry Kegwin, he had choreographed a piece on our class my senior year, and he was remounting some larger works for a tour to Jacob's Pillow. So I did, and he asked me to go on that tour, and I did, and then I never really stopped working with him after that. So yeah, I danced for him for 8 years. Not only was it my first real professional concert work, but I also learned how to do a lot of administrative skills there. So throughout the years, I started just like wanting to like help out. I wanted to like learn more. So I like started writing blogs for the company, and then I like took over the wardrobe, and then I became the company manager, and then I became Larry's like artistic assistant and would help him on all his creations. And then I eventually became the managing director of the company, where I ran all of the administrative everything. So wow. Not only was it like a performance trajectory for me, but it was like they were really wonderful in nurturing this sort of like business entrepreneurial spirit that I had. And I really learned, it was invaluable, that experience.
I mean, just hearing you talk about that, I feel like, again, back to versatility, you being so versatile and able to wear so many hats has led to you having this long career that you've had.
Yeah.
It's really given you longevity.
Totally. And it's kept my interest alive. It's been I'm so thankful to have been able to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And that's all I was never that dancer, especially in college, where it's like, I just want to be in Hubbard Street, and that is like, people set goals and people set aspirations. And that's one, I never operated like that. And I don't know why, but.
So Kegwin, and then where did you go after Kegwin?
So I freelanced around. I did bouncing between commercial work. I started doing a lot of assisting for choreographers, a lot of associate choreographer work. And then I ended up where I currently am now with the Mark Morris Dance Group. And that had also been a long trajectory. I started dancing for Mark right out of college in 2010. So probably like right in between the convention and the Christmas show is the company existed in Brussels for a couple years. He had unlimited resources. He could have whatever set he wanted. He had a full orchestra. He had 26 dancers. Anything that his creative minds wanted to do, he could do. It was at his disposal. So he made some really, really large works while the company was in Brussels. And one of them is his masterpiece, L'Allegro. And whenever the company does these larger works, they hire in supplemental dancers. So 2010, right out of college, I went to an audition for L'Allegro. I got it. I went to LA, performed with the company in L'Allegro, and sort of anytime L'Allegro or the Hard Nut, which is another bit, his Nutcracker came up, they asked me to come back and dance with the company to sort of fill those extra roles. And there was a few of us that did that. And I basically did that from 2010 until 2018, just maybe like a gig or two a year when these pieces came up. And I was doing the Hard Nut in 2018. And Mark had invited me to stay on, and I stayed on. And now I'm a company member with the dance group, and that's where I am. So
That's incredible. That's so, I've known you for a very long time, but to hear how everything happened and when it happened, that's wow.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of really cool gigs and project jobs in your time in New York.
Yeah, I feel I'm always so fortunate when I reflect on it because it's been a fun ride.
Let's talk about DDL.
Yeah.
What sparked this idea?
So Dance Device Lab to me is an extension of my teaching philosophy. So it really started when another way I was able to be a freelance dancer was teaching. So I would go home to Michigan every summer for like 3 weeks in August, teach at all the studios. I would set tons of dances and solos, and I would just like bang it out. And it gave me a little bit of a financial cushion to be able to come back and freelance. You know, it's like, okay, well, I know rent can be paid for, especially through January when if you're not doing a Nutcracker, you've got nothing to do type thing.
Yeah.
So like I taught a lot, and I taught a lot at studios. And there's a studio in Owasso, Michigan, which is way up here. Studio owner, she was looking to bring someone in to teach contemporary, just for a workshop, because her kids, they didn't have access to it. So I went up and taught a master class or two, came back this summer, and then I started doing dances. It sort of accumulated over and over. And maybe around the 5th or 6th summer, when we're the 10-year-olds, we're now the 15 or 16-year-olds. And I had this moment where I was like, I made a dance and I was like, wait a minute, I could have not have made that dance when I first started here. And like we were playing creative games and we were improvising and they were open to it. And I was like, wow, I was talking to the studio owner, I was like, we kind of made our own little summer intensive, and just introducing the nuggets of information to these young dancers when they were 10, by the time they got older, they were ready to go. And that was just me coming in for like 3 or 4 days over a summer just to see that grow. So I sort of had this thought of like, well, maybe those seeds can be planted and they can grow if you give people that information. And I know a lot of studios, I grew up with it. I didn't have modern or contemporary. We didn't improv. I was never allowed, I never made up a phrase. I didn't know who the company was. I didn't know who Yuri Killian was. And so my sort of idea of Dance Device Lab is sort of to codify that and maybe introduce the ideas of creative thinking and concert dance to studios that necessarily don't have it. And if they do have it, to sort of reinforce it and to give it a different perspective. The value that I have as a dance educator is to empower dancers to think for themselves. I also grew up in an environment where we were so commercial that it was like, stand on the number 2, be quiet, be professional, wait and do what you're told. And I found, and I do think this is changing in the commercial world, but I did find in the concert world, no one wants you to do that. Everyone, the choreographers want your creative contributions, and it's welcomed, and they want you to help make up phrases, or they want an editor, or they want you to make something up so they can put their, everyone's process is different, but I found that it took me a long time at Juilliard to be comfortable speaking and having independent thinking. And I really think that's important for any art form and any job, really. And I try to translate that into a dance class.
Well, I completely agree with everything that finding that balance, or especially for young dancers, knowing that it's okay to use that voice when it's called upon and not to shy away from that.
Right.
So, I am fortunate enough to teach for DDL, and the faculty that you have on your roster is phenomenal. And they're all so different. Like, talk to me a little bit, or us a little bit, about how you choose your faculty, how faculty is assigned to various weekends.
Part of it was like, what I loved about a company and how most dance companies starts is like, oh, well, I got my friends together and we made a dance. And there's this idea of community and supporting your community. And I loved that. And I was like, well, I would love to employ my friends that I know are incredible teachers. What I wanted to do was assemble a group of people that I had taken class from, that I respect, and that have also worked in both the studio and the concert world. Everyone on our team is sort of a unique amalgamation of those experiences. You know, it's like, because you could have a really creative teacher with a wonderful European aesthetic background, but they don't know how to work with a studio kid that actually has never worked in this way. So everyone on my team either grew up at a studio or has learned and has incredible experience teaching on the studio convention sort of side of things, but they also have had concert dance experiences and are able to translate that and in a healthy way to young dancers. You know, just introducing it into a completely different value and skill set. Everyone is also like an incredibly interested and passionate educator. You know, it's like everyone who is on my team loves teaching and wants to teach. And that's why our team is really small. And it's all sort of like I was talking about earlier, it's all sort of like in the family. You know, we all have very similar backgrounds, very different experiences, which makes us diverse, but similar backgrounds in the ideas of our training and the ideas of our core values.
There's a nice through line that connects all of us.
Yeah.
So a DDL weekend, walk me through one as if I had never been to one.
All of our events are completely customizable. So the idea is you can scale up or scale down as much as you need. You know, we could come in and just do a few master classes with some guest teachers, or over the summer, we have a lot of studios that we work with that are interested in intensives. So the idea of an intensive being completely customizable is, you know, we could come in and do like a wide variety of classes. We could build a dance convention at your studio, bring in 10 teachers, everyone teaches once, or we could go a different route. We could do a very specific intensive. Like if there's a studio that wants to go down the contemporary route, it's like, awesome, great. I will pair you with the perfect teacher for that. I will get you someone who can really teach improvisation, who can teach composition, who can teach ballet, who can teach floor work, who can lead a video forum and introduce you to choreographers. Or, you know, we could like do a Limon technique class and then like introduce you to some videos in the Limon technique. That's where you would come in. You know, I really work with our studio owners to, you know, if someone is to email me, I will follow up with the email, but then I 100% always follow up with a phone call, because I want to know what your studio is like. I want, you know, your dancers the most. And at the end of the day, we're guests in your home, you know? So like, tell me your strengths, tell me your weaknesses. We don't cater to any specific type of studio or dancers. We love working with all ages and all levels. So like, I completely build a program that the studio owner is interested in, and we sort of bounce ideas off of what we provide that's different. So that's our one program. And our second program, which is our adjudication showcase. And that program I developed after judging for many years. I like judging. I don't like the day of judging. I just like, I always like want to remind people that like those poor judges are sitting in a chair for 10 hours. They have a 15-minute break. I know you want your competition tapes. I know you spent a lot of money for this dancer at this competition, but you know what? When you've been there since 6 and it is 8:30 p.m., your brain is just scrambled eggs. It is. And I sympathize for them, because studios pay so much money to go to competitions. And I love I think the camaraderie is great. I think seeing other dancers is wonderful. I think not winning is wonderful. I think there is a place for competitions, but as a judge, I was so exhausted from doing it. And I wanted to give more, you know, I wanted to give better critique tapes when I wasn't like cross-eyed, that wasn't just like stretch your needs. You know, I wanted to like work with the dancers, and I wanted to like implement the feedback I was giving. And as a dancer who went through that, I wanted that too. How many times did you come home and we had cassette tapes?
Yeah.
And it would just be like, stretch your leg. And it's like, well, I know, but like what, how, so.
Ooh, great.
Yeah, totally. Cause we didn't even have videos back then. You had to like rehearse your solo while listening to tape to know what they were doing. Yeah. So I developed this as a way to fix all the conflicts I was having with the process. I was like, well, I want to implement the critiques. So I was like, so do that, so our adjudication showcase is the 2-part event. Part 1 is the showcase where you would perform your dances. We would then give sort of American Idol style live feedback, like first thoughts, like this is what I think, this is what I think. And then here's the important part, is that we will then rehearse with your dancers to implement those critiques. If something I wrote down said level change, we're going to rehearse it. The dance ends, everyone's standing there, and then for like 10, 15 minutes, I actively, or you or whoever's doing it, actively works with the dancers to get them to understand it physically. And then all the written critiques that we made are given to the teacher, knowing that's a lot of information to digest, so that they can always have that. And we either run it one of 2 ways. One is a scaled up version, which is like a mock sort of dress rehearsal to a competition, where a studio would rent out a theater and there'd be costumes and you can invite your friends and family. Or we do a more relaxed event, which is completely in the studio and it's more rehearsal clothes, it's more intimate. Those are sort of the 2 ways that we found are most successful. And part 2 for the showcase is class. So it goes back to my ideas of teaching, is that if you don't implement these things in the studio, then they'll never happen on stage. It's like, I remembered, and this sort of goes back to my like childhood training. We were very class heavy. We rehearsed our competition dances like once a week just to like run them. And, I find so many students are so interested in their dances, but not class. So for me, you can't affect the change unless you're going to do it every day in class. It's muscle memory, it's habituations and stuff. So trying to find a way to bridge that gap of like, oh, remember we talked about level changes in your dance like an hour ago? Like now we're in class, like here's how we can do it going across the floor. And trying to like tie those dots together, I think is super valuable. And I think is something that you can't get from a sort of a large scale convention or competition.
I completely agree with you. And I know for me, it's so helpful when I do the DDL events that I see their numbers, I see what they're doing, and then I figure out that night when I get back to my hotel, how can I then incorporate that into my class? And I find that having that moment of seeing the work and then class, there's a click that happens in those dancers. They're like, wait, I do this in my jazz number. He's just, oh, it's all this like, it's.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting in that format because it's so the way we're taught is so opposite. You have, it's like dancers, the show is the pinnacle moment. We're always like the show, the competition, that sort of end result. And we know from training that it's a process. It's like you can say something, but it's not going to happen till next year. You can work on lengthening from the back of your legs or getting a higher relative, but that's not going to happen overnight. So planting those seeds, I think, is really like, it's important. And especially if you're going to, I find that our studios that do it really early in the season, their dances also change. By the time they get to perform them, they're very different because we came in, and they can continue talking about those ideas in their own classrooms when we have left.
You mentioned something earlier about you have a lot of experience judging competition, and I know the events that I've done for you, so many of your faculty also has that same experience. And so many times I have the teacher saying, what do you think the judge is saying? So it's almost like they're getting these little gems from judges that aren't judging their kids.
Right.
They're really there only to help.
Totally. And I find, for me, it was a way to implement this idea. And I have found that anyone that has has run these events, and it's a very small group of people that have run it, have found it so much more mutually beneficial for you as an educator and as a guest and for the students. You know, it's like it really is a collaborative, interactive experience, you know, sort of like we were talking about getting dancers to speak and getting dancers, you know, it's like it's not just a rehearsal where we come in and clean, all right, let's go to the chorus, like everyone clean your arm. It's like, no, like we're like, do you feel that, Sarah? Like, how do you know, it's like, it's very, very interactive. And I find it really rewarding on both parties.
It most definitely is. Like, we do a deep dive into those, especially in the showcases.
Oh yeah.
That's actually my favorite. That's my favorite part. I love that moment of seeing it, and then like, then I'm on stage with the dancers, coaching and directing and guiding. You've talked a lot about the contemporary aspect of the program. What if a studio is more of a musical theater studio or even a tap studio?
Yeah, that, as esteemed as our faculty is in terms of, we've talked about a lot of contemporary and classical training, we do have a lot of musical theater faculty as well. And I say that, I'll use Michael John Slinger as an example, because he has had an illustrious musical theater career. I think he's had like 6 Broadway shows. He teaches all the time, but he also went to Juilliard with me, and he was one of my really good friends there. And he specifically is able to, I believe that the core values that we talk about in terms of contemporary dance, of being empowered, of thinking creatively, of thinking outside the box, even today, really go into the musical theater world. So using him as an example, is he's someone that understands that, who has done, not only, he hasn't even done that many sort of like revival shows. He does more current contemporary musical theater where he's a part of the creative process. So he sees that, and he's able to translate those sort of core values into more musical theater styles. You know, more and more I'm finding that musical theater and tap, if you look at Justin Peck, if you look at Michelle Dorrance, you know, they all sort of have evolved from this sort of contemporized form. And the ideas of being a complete individual, I think, really are prevalent in the musical theater world now. So if someone is interested in a musical theater or tap program, we would definitely pair you with faculty that have experience in those realms, but the core values would still stay the same.
So what if I'm a studio owner and my kids just click with one of your faculty members? Does DDL offer choreography?
Yeah, we do. So yeah, we do offer guest choreography, and that is either something that we can discuss beforehand, or let's say you have went and taught at a studio and the studio owner's like, we just like have to continue this collaboration with Ashley. Like, we've just really dove into this idea. The kids, I think we can like really implement it if they have something that we can like work on throughout the year. And that is, we definitely, solos, duos, trios, small groups.
Well, it was lovely chatting with you today.
Thanks for the role reversal, Ashley.
I really enjoyed this. I learned a lot today too.
Good. Well, I'm endlessly thankful to have you on our team, and I look forward to this new season. And thank you so much for chatting.
You're so welcome.
Bye.